I was surprised.
It took me a long time to get used to it.
And I wasn't aware of what could happen to the infant while I had diabetes.
Because I have a family history of diabetes in my family, and I had been tested routinely when I would go for checkups, and nothing ever came up as diabetes.
Surprise and fear are normal, but most cases of gestational diabetes can be managed and controlled. What is gestational diabetes? Gestational diabetes develops during pregnancy because the body can't produce enough of a hormone called insulin. Insulin helps the body use glucose. Glucose is often called blood sugar. Insulin is produced in specialized cells within a gland called the pancreas. When you eat, your stomach digests certain food nutrients and changes them into glucose. At the same time, the pancreas produces insulin. Glucose and insulin circulate through the bloodstream. As they circulate, insulin helps the body's fat and muscle cells absorb the glucose so it can be used for energy, or change the glucose so it can be stored in the fat cells for later use. As pregnancy progresses, certain hormone levels have been increasing in the placenta. Between the 4th and 8th month of pregnancy, these hormones start to interfere with glucose getting into the cells. This interference is called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance occurs at the same time your body needs more energy from glucose, causing the need for more and more insulin. Normally, the pancreas produces enough insulin to compensate for insulin resistance and the increased energy demands of the later stages of pregnancy. In some women, however, the pancreas can't increase its production of insulin. When there isn't enough insulin, cells can't use the glucose. Glucose remains in the bloodstream and the blood sugar level becomes higher than normal. This is gestational diabetes.
Boy, we really waited a long time to have a baby. In the first few months of my pregnancy were really good. I wasn't sick and I felt really well. And somewhere, I believe it was around the 5th month of my pregnancy.
Mrs. Knight, you do have gestational diabetes.
I never expected something like this to happen. My doctor explained that I had taken 3 tests: a urine test, a glucose load blood test, and a 3-hour glucose tolerance test. All of them confirmed I had gestational diabetes. But what about my baby?
Fortunately, your baby does not have diabetes.
Even though you have diabetes, it's more than likely that the baby doesn't have it and won't be born with it. Also, after your pregnancy, your diabetes may go away. But there's a greater chance of developing diabetes later in life. And if you become pregnant in the future, there's a greater than 50% chance you'll have gestational diabetes again. Until the pregnancy is over, uncontrolled diabetes could affect the baby as well as you. If blood sugar is high and there's not enough insulin, glucose may build up in the urine, and an acid condition may develop in the blood. This condition is called ketoacidosis. Although this can be life-threatening to the mother and her baby, ketoacidosis is not likely to happen unless dehydration occurs. This is usually associated with vomiting, diarrhea, or fever. Another way gestational diabetes affects the mother is to increase the chance for infection, especially if glucose or blood sugar levels are high. Infections which may develop during pregnancy include infections of the vagina, bladder, and kidneys. Your doctor checks for the presence of these infections with urinalysis tests. How does gestational diabetes affect the baby? When a pregnant woman has an increase in her blood sugar level, some of the excess sugar goes to the baby through the placenta. Because the baby does not have diabetes, it is capable of producing its own extra insulin. The baby uses the extra calories and insulin. The baby grows bigger than normal, leading to complications at delivery and an increased likelihood of cesarean birth. Also, sometimes too much amniotic fluid is produced. This can stretch the uterus and cause premature labor. After birth, the baby may temporarily continue to overproduce insulin. This insulin overproduction causes the baby's blood sugar levels to drop into the danger zone. This low blood sugar condition is called hypoglycemia. Since newborns are more sensitive to hypoglycemia than older humans, hospitals use special care and monitoring techniques for the newborn. Extra sugar in the form of glucose may be given temporarily to keep the baby's blood sugar level normal. Other possible side effects could affect your baby's lungs or blood chemistry levels, requiring special treatment after birth. Treating gestational diabetes is the best way to minimize the possible complications to you and your baby.
Getting my blood sugar level under control was the most important thing that I had to do. The first thing the doctor said was that I had to modify my meal planning.
It's important to take control of your meal planning by eating the right foods at the right times. Your doctor may recommend a dietitian who will work with you to design a program to meet your needs and tastes.
Fruit exchange group, one skim milk exchange, and one fat exchange.
Here are some general guidelines. Try not to eat large meals that overwork the pancreas. The pancreas can't produce enough insulin for large amounts of blood sugar. To match how much food you eat with how much insulin your pancreas produces, eat smaller meals throughout the day. You might start eating 3 smaller meals and 2 to 3 snacks a day. To prevent your blood glucose level from dropping too low during the night, a large bedtime snack may be recommended. Remember, don't skip meals, including breakfast. Another guideline is to avoid eating foods that cause a rapid rise in your blood sugar. To learn more, let's look at the kinds of foods you'll eat. About half your calories should be from carbohydrate food sources. Another 20% of the calories should be supplied by protein. Calories from fats will make up the balance. Of these 3 types of nutrients, carbohydrates or starches have the greatest effect on the blood sugar level. Just about all the carbohydrates we eat turn into sugar and are absorbed into the bloodstream, causing a rise in blood sugar. To minimize sudden rises in blood sugar, eat high-fiber carbohydrates like dried beans, peas, fresh or frozen vegetables, whole grains, and fresh fruit. High-fiber carbohydrates cause a more gradual rise in blood sugar levels than more refined low-fiber carbohydrates. Avoid carbohydrate foods high in concentrated simple sugars like candy, pies, cakes, and sugared cereals. Also, table sugar, honey, molasses, corn syrup, sucrose, and other sweeteners should be avoided. Protein foods like meat, poultry, fish, and dairy products can be converted into sugar by the liver. But overall, protein foods have a smaller, more delayed effect on blood sugar than carbohydrates. Fats in foods also have a more delayed effect on blood sugar levels than carbohydrates. But foods high in fat content, like butter, margarine, mayonnaise, oils, bacon, and sausage, are high in calories. Since calories determine how much insulin your body needs, fats must be carefully balanced with other foods in your meal plan.
Brenda, since your last visit with us, and since weighing you today, we noticed that you gained 3 pounds more than what your original goal had been.
Your weight gain will be monitored. If you are gaining weight too quickly or slowly, changes will be made in the meal plan. you'll be taught how to measure your blood glucose level.
So we're going to put the finger sticking device up to the spot that we cleansed off with some alcohol and just apply a little gentle pressure.
Blood glucose testing tells you within a broad range the amount of glucose in your blood. Your doctor will tell you the level or range which is acceptable for you and how often you should do the testing. Blood glucose meters provide a somewhat more exact reading of blood sugar level. Another home test your doctor may prescribe for you is to test your urine for ketones. Just because you have diabetes doesn't mean you should stop the exercise routines you've been doing. Moderate exercise is a good way to help lower your blood sugar. Walking after a meal lowers the blood sugar rise. If you are exercising prior to pregnancy, usually you can continue to do so. Also, supervised prenatal exercise classes may be recommended. As your pregnancy progresses, your doctor may suggest you stop certain physical activities for other medical reasons. Usually, a woman's need for insulin increases the closer she gets to her due date. This is a normal sign that your body is adjusting to the changing needs of your baby. If diet and exercise are not enough to control your blood sugar level, your doctor may prescribe insulin injections. The vast majority of women will not need insulin injections. If you do need insulin injections, your doctor or diabetes educator will teach you how to use insulin. During your pregnancy, you should call your doctor about any illness, especially anything that leads to dehydration, such as vomiting, diarrhea, or fever. Also, call your doctor about any other medical conditions which are specific risks to your pregnancy. The last few months of pregnancy, you'll see your doctor more often. You may be admitted to the hospital a few days to several weeks before your due date. Tests are performed to determine whether your baby can be delivered vaginally or if cesarean birth is necessary. If a vaginal delivery is possible, labor may be induced between the 38th and 40th week of pregnancy. You have the ability to control your diabetes. In most cases, through proper diet, monitoring your blood glucose level, and following your health care team's instructions, you can minimize most of the complications